You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
You're listening to the Show Jumping Podcast, a fun and informative show for riders, owners, trainers, grooms, and fans of all levels.
I'm Ashley Winch in Kansas City, Missouri.
And I'm Kristy McCormack in Saratoga Springs, New York. And you're listening to the Show Jumping Podcast, where we answer your riding questions and chat with fellow horse enthusiasts about the world of show jumping. Coming at you from Salt Lake City, Utah, I have two guests with me today. Kimmy, my dearest sister, who was my first guest and is living out in Salt Lake for the last month. And I came out to have a nice little visit with her. And one of our oldest friends, Emily Kilker, who has resided out here for
about 5 years now.
5 years and has worked with us at a farm called North Run Farm. That was over 20 years ago. Wow. Kimmy was a little pipsqueak then in her early teens, working on being a junior rider. I was a trainer there and Emily was the manager. Yeah. Emily, fill us in on what you've been doing the last 20 years.
I left North Run about 5 years ago and moved to Park City to work at a place called the National Ability Center there. I took a position in their equestrian program. The National Ability Center serves people of all abilities, so it's pretty much a therapeutic riding center. And then I still didn't have enough time to really focus on myself and the things I wanted to do, so I shifted to property management, and I've been doing that for the past 5 years. It's taken me to North Lake Tahoe and the Park City area, and it's been fantastic.
That sounds really awesome. Do you have plans to keep horses in your life in the future?
I have plans to go back to volunteering soon. I'm starting a remote position tomorrow, which I'm really excited about.
Awesome.
With our company, and I will have the flexibility to be able to go and do some volunteer work. I haven't ridden in a really long time, but I miss being around them a lot.
And listeners, we're talking about somebody who rode up to 10 horses a day. We were both at North Run and worked, 15
all
hours
day,
a day?
every day, lived there, traveled everywhere.
Horses were your whole life. What made you make the decision to leave horse show life?
I really needed to restart my life. I felt like I committed my entire existence to horses. I loved it. I loved every second of it. I loved being around the animals. I loved the junior riders, seeing kids achieve their goals and stuff like that, and being a behind the scenes part of it. But I really missed passions that I had when I was younger and other things that I wanted to pursue, skiing and climbing, or not climbing, hiking, camping,
exploring,
all that stuff. Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Doing
outside
all that
things. Yeah.
all that. So, yeah.
But obviously horses, if you're going back to volunteering, are still
they're definitely
passion of your
still a
life.
Passion. Animals, all the animals.
Yeah.
I love
Awesome.
animals.
Well, Kimmy and I certainly have a lot of things in common about this coming topic that I wanted to talk about today. I thought we could commiserate on some horse show fails.
Nice.
And for listeners out there, going to horse shows, we all know how expectations can lead us to some disasters. Do you have any that you remember off the top of your head that stand out in your memory?
Off the top of my head, the first one that I thought of was being at Washington. We had a groom that was trying to put some studs in the back feet of a horse and having some difficulty, and he managed to somehow cut his finger and needed stitches, and it was
I remember this. Kimmy, were you showing at that time at this show?
And it was a lot.
It was middle of the night in downtown DC, if I recall correctly, and
At the Washington Horse Show, yes.
At DC goes.
Yes, we're on the street. We have no
In
place to
stables,
ride
yeah.
except for the time allowed in literally in the middle of the
Middle of the
night.
night, yeah.
And our dad was there, right?
Yeah.
And put him back together. Our father, the trusty surgeon who stitched up my forehead when I got kicked in the head by a horse. Kimmy, I don't know if he's had to put you back together in any horse way.
I believe he told me I didn't have a broken arm when I did once. So
Oh, I got that too. Yeah. I fell off and got that too as a young kid, for sure.
fine.
But he was there and put that groom back together. Because of course we had to get to the ring.
Exactly.
That was
Exactly.
priority. Yeah. That poor guy.
He was showing, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a great horse show fail. Kimmy, any that you can think of that you can remember? We talked a little earlier about a riding one.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a deep cut. When I was really young, really just getting into showing seriously, I was probably about 13 and had the opportunity to ride this absolute just seeing eye dog of a low junior jumper who was carting me around, the low junior amateurs when I had no business being in that ring really as a 12, 13-year-old. And I think we were at Saratoga and we'd had a string of just really good classes, like gone really well. I was riding really well. And all of a sudden I got it in my 13-year-old brain that I could be champion. Like I had just started showing in the low juniors and look how amazing I was. And I was going to be champion.
Yes.
And it was going to
Which is the most important thing at the time, obviously.
And so
that was a sarcastic comment.
So my little 13-year-old self walks into the classic ring in my white breeches with that tricolor ribbon in my brain. And if there were 12 jumps in that ring, I chipped 10 of them. I did 2 strides in the 1 stride. It was just an unmitigated disaster of a round. I don't think I've ever ridden worse in my life. But it was a really good teaching moment. And hey, maybe chill out thinking about the ribbon because that's a bad idea.
That is a huge reason for a horse show fail. I have several of those. Do you remember what I might have said to you when you came out of the ring that day? Was I mad or was I laughing? Hopefully I laughed.
I think I don't remember.
You blocked it out. Yes.
And like the gallop up to the chip and a single oxer. And you're
Yes.
just like,
Oh, no.
No.
My best chip was at Derby finals. And that was the year I happened to win the actual championship. But there is a consolation class that occurs during the day before the championship round. Mm-hmm. And I was riding for Jen Alfano that year, who was hurt. And I had 2 horses in the event. And the first day, the horse that ended up winning the whole thing was brilliant. And the younger horse she had me ride was also brilliant, but happened to have a rail. He had a really light rub and it came down. So we did the consolation class. And I was going in there, guns blazing and determined that, I could win this class, not thinking ahead of the later class, of course. And I ran down to the worst jump to chip at, which was the up and down wall, no ground line, very tall. Thank God that horse was so brave. I saw that distance or what I thought was there 12 strides away and I started kicking and my arms started flapping and I started galloping and I really thought I was leaving the ground. And my poor horse was like, I'm sorry, this is about 8 feet away from this very tall wall. I'm just going to put in another half stride. And I chipped so hard, I literally flew into the air and almost fell off and was so embarrassed coming out of the ring. And luckily, Jen looked at me and she goes, glad you got that out of the way because you got a bigger class tonight. So it pulled my little brain back together. But you're right. When you start thinking you're going to win, that's kind of when, crap hits the fan. It does happen.
To that end, like on a very similar theme, when the year I won the medal Maclay finals, we did New England finals the week in between. So you go to medal finals.
I do remember this too. Yes. Yeah.
And we go to New England finals, and it's this regional 3-3, really well run, really great.
Yeah.
But kind of a lower level than the medal Maclay. And I'm on one of the other, I think I was on Marcus, and another North Run horse who was just a fabulous horse. So fun to ride. Give Tommy a break. And same thing. I don't remember the details, but I chipped in the I'd gotten a really high score in the first round. Oh, I'm going to win this too.
Yeah, this is so easy. I just won the medal finals.
And just got lazy, got cocky.
Yeah.
And I come out of the ring just embarrassed, disappointed. And John Brennan had the biggest smile on his face. And he was like, thank goodness you needed to do that.
Yeah.
And then the next week I won the Maclay finals.
Well, exactly. It sometimes fails. A fail give you exactly the perspective that you need. Yeah. And hopefully it's not too much of an emotional distraught in the moment.
One place you never have to worry about a fail is with Relyne GI by Haggard Pharmacy. Are you looking for a natural, long-term solution for your horse's digestive health? Relyne GI goes beyond just treating systems. This unique combination of gut-supporting hyaluronin and immune-boosting beta-glucan works in harmony with your horse's body to soothe and protect their digestive system. Unlike other options that can disrupt digestion and nutrient absorption, Relyne GI maintains your horse's natural balance. Don't just rely on our claims. Relyne GI is trusted by leading veterinarians and supported by scientific research, including a study by Dr. Nathan Slovis that demonstrated its effectiveness in reducing ulcers in active horses. Plus, it's Clean Sport certified, making it safe for use in competitions. Don't forget, for an additional 10% off, use code SJP at checkout.
I had asked today in preparation for the podcast some of my older or former students some of their fails, and I got hilarious texts that I'd like to read and see if they trigger any more of yours. But so one year we were in Wellington, and I was trying to save money for everybody. And instead of shipping the horses to the horse show the day before, or even riding them over the day before and getting stalls, a lot of times we would ride to the ring from farms that were, surrounding the horse show. So I have a couple stories about this actually, but one from one of my riders. She was in an 8 o'clock class, and I told her to ride the horse over at 7 a.m. for the 8 o'clock class. And this is her little text to me, which reads so much better than I could even remember it. She says, but Kristy, it's dark at 7, and the canal, which we had to ride along, is very long and dark, as it was daylight savings just last weekend. Now, mind you, this ride along the canal is probably a solid 30-minute ride. I would like, at the time, I'm sure I called it a 20-minute ride. It was not true. It was at least 30 minutes, probably 40, if you're trotting. And I say to the student, don't worry, you'll be fine. Your horse knows the way. Oh, and wear this backpack, which is full of everything that you need at the ring. She heads out in the dark and with her backpack on. This is in her words. I pick up a trot as I am scared of alligators and being alone. I see several items falling out of the backpack. I see that it is all of Meredith, who is another rider in the barn, her polar wraps. I get off my snorting horse and gather the items. I realize there's no fence or anything to use to remount the horse. So now imagine she's in the middle of the, field or trail that's going to the horse show between barns, no help around her. She says, I push my horse into the canal so I can reach the stirrup. Look down and see my checkbook on the ground. Begin to dismount again and remount process again. Now I am late. Gallop to the show with backpack in front like a papoose. Frantic and exhausted. Thank God I won the class. Exhaustion and distraction can be a bonus. So there's actually a fail on my end for asking any student or really anybody to ride their horse to the ring on the day of the show, which leads me to my next fail.
I thought you were going to say that the horse ended up in the canal, which also happened.
Go right ahead, Emily. Please share.
And I know that the fire department was involved in getting him out. They were riding him over, I think, to what's that? The grass field that they do those. The Ridge.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So they were riding
Okay.
him from Grand Prix Village over to the Ridge to
Okay.
do some
Again,
schooling.
another 20 to 30-minute ride,
Yeah.
at least, if you're moving.
Exactly. And the horse is really
To
quiet.
go, to compete,
To
right?
compete, yeah. Really quiet,
And
really
probably
slow,
a very,
and like doesn't spook at
high-level
anything,
course.
and backed into the canal and had to get assisted out of it.
Because those canal walls are pretty
Mhm.
steep. You
Yep.
know, if you
So if
fall
it
in,
starts down, like you can, like he slid in
Yeah.
and couldn't get back out.
was the rider in the canal? Do you know?
And then
oh my goodness.
got off in the canal, tried to like get him out, and then
So fears of Wellington. For everybody who thinks it's such a glamorous place, it's not.
Yeah.
Another Wellington ride to the ring fail on my end was I had another student showing during Hunter Week, and Hunter Week notoriously takes forever because the hunters go in the Grand Prix ring, and those courses take at least 4 minutes to get around per horse. So, and because everybody loves to show during Hunter Week, you know, the numbers are enormous. So I have one rider, and we go in the beginning of the class and we go in the end of the class. And let's just say the amateur owner ring. And there's, let's call it 50 horses that have to go one round. So we go to the ring and we show the one horse in the beginning of the class. And I say, okay, I'm going to go back to the barn. And which was at this point, again, trying to save money. We didn't have stalls at the horse show. We had the farm on Appaloosa, which is another direction that you have to go from the show. 20 to 30-minute ride at least. But I am going back to the barn and waiting to send with a groom at a walk, which again, I don't know why that was a good idea in my mind, which is now a 45-minute walk to the ring to horse show. So I'm checking my phone. I'm doing something else at the farm. I'm trying to keep in touch with the rider. And I probably lose a little track of time thinking it's taking forever. And suddenly the rider texts me, because there's no service in Wellington also. Hey, Kristy, we are 7 out. Any chance you're going to be at the ring soon? And now, mind you, Tommy, again, the famous Tommy Sundance, who is appearing in every podcast, is not even tacked up at the farm. And the groom definitely can't walk there in 7 trips. So I throw tack on him and gallop him in my sneakers to the ring. Gallop this poor horse from a standstill along the canal again, but through some other farms. And it takes me what should have taken me 20 minutes takes me 12. And in Tommy fashion, he, you know, has no problem just getting to the ring, jumping around beautifully. And I think they at least got a top, 2 or 3 ribbon there. So I don't know how I thought the timing was going to go, but it didn't work out. So planning ahead sometimes never works out. Kimmy, do you have any Tommy stories that are of the same nature? Because that horse has put up with a lot from us.
Oh, he has put up with so much. A very similar story actually at Maclay finals. I think the year before. I would have been about 15. And same thing, we were stabled. It was in Syracuse back. So I'm aging myself right now. Doing Maclay finals in Syracuse. We're in like the bottom level of the parking garage. You have to cross a couple of streets through these narrow tent tunnels. And same thing. I think we were back at the barn, and we were 6 or 7 out. And maybe we just pulled them out of the stall.
One of the most important horse shows of the year.
So I was coming back top 10.
Yeah.
And it was
a big deal-ish.
I don't know how we messed it up, but we did. And so we got to the ring.
So Tommy again had to rush to the ring. Yes.
So, but hustling.
It worked.
It worked. It happened.
How did that round go?
I think it went. Oh, I know. I'm going to correct myself. It would have been the first round because that is the year that we had a disastrous flat round.
So your round went okay after that rushing into it.
The first round went great. We went into the flat. I think top 10, top 5 even maybe. And there was somebody filing papers on the side of the
Oh,
ring.
yes. Yeah.
And Tommy went spinning into the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
And all the marbles were gone.
They noticed that.
And that was the end of my
Yeah. Then it was over. Yes. Yes.
But the first round went great.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That clearly the rush to the ring didn't bother you or Tommy. He got used to that. Maybe that was a good prep for the Florida gallop to the ring that I had to do. How about packing fails to go to a horse show? I mean, all of us have packed for a show. I once spent a whole morning, very detail oriented, trying to pack for a whole horse show with all of the tack and specifically picking out all the bridles, and then I put that all in a trunk. Trailer comes, I send an empty trunk to the horse show with no tack whatsoever, none, which I didn't notice until I personally got to the horse show and opened it, and there's no tack. And then I have to call somebody at the barn to say, hi, all of that tack that's in the trunk, can you now drive 2 hours to the horse show and bring it to me and put it in your car? I mean, how often have things like that happened? Make me feel better that it's not just me.
Everything, like, yes, stuff gets forgotten all the time. We used to have to bring these specific boxes to jump that went for Harrisburg, but they would have to go to USAT finals in order to get to Harrisburg. Those were forgotten one year and had to be driven to Gladstone in order to get on the trailer.
From Vermont. Yeah, New Jersey, Vermont to New Jersey.
35-minute drive. It was like a six-ish hour drive, probably. Yeah.
Jamie Cormier, who's been on this podcast before, again, another North Run alumni. She reminded me of when we got to Syracuse for the Maclay finals. Wow, that's coming up a lot. That must have just been a tough place.
Yeah.
We got there and noticed we had no girths, 0 girths to tack up the ride the horses with.
I remember that.
Yeah, no girths. And we realized it like 20 minutes before a nighttime lesson, and of nighttime lesson of how many students were there maybe at the time. Several. So in my memory, and I'll have to have her, check in with me to see if this is correct.
Was there a trunk that didn't go?
I don't know. I just know that we had nothing to attach the saddle to the horse.
Let the grooms to pack for themselves.
Yes,
that's always
something like that. No grooms. No, we had grooms, just no girths. And so I think I ran around to several different barns just for the lesson to say, do you have a girth? Do you have 6 girths? Do you have 8 that I could borrow for just the next 2 hours, please? And
I did not know that one.
God, that was tough. That was tough. We managed to keep it from Missy. Missy, sorry if you're listening to this. She probably does not, but that happened. I don't know. We solved it somehow. That's the thing. When fails happen, you just got to figure it out and solve it. Or deal with the consequences.
Right. Which is solving it.
Which is solving it. Yeah.
Great heritage for her.
Yeah, exactly. One of the only other barns that would have the same amount of horses. Yeah. Hi, we're so silly and stupid that we forgot all of our tack and girths.
Wild.
Yeah, that was tough. At least it was at a lesson time and not a show. I mean, we were showing the next day. Somehow we figured it out and got girths to the show.
Frankly, would have been a bareback lesson.
I think that's an excellent solution. Missy would have not thought that. The kids would have loved it, I'm sure.
Bareback lessons in Vermont that she gave.
Did she?
Yeah.
But the night before the Maclay finals?
This is true. It was in prep to go. It was the prep for the prep to go there, but not in a public atmosphere.
That was at some farm. One of the first years it was at Syracuse. So now we're at this offsite farm that has a very small ring, and it's snowing outside, and all we have tents. I just remember it being pretty traumatic at the time. It's funny now, but at the time it was tragic.
It's not funny,
right?
At the time.
No,
it's never funny.
It's never funny at the time. No,
adrenaline's going, and you're like, oh my goodness.
Another packing fail, and this is packing to go home, was I left my car keys in my trunk.
Oh yeah,
and packed all of the trailer with all of the equipment. And for anybody who's packed a large trailer, the trunks go in first. And I'm sure mine was at the bottom because I unfortunately had to watch the trailer drive out. This is at the Vermont Horse Show. Watch the trailer drive out of the horse show, go to look for my keys, realize I don't have them, realize they're in my trunk, realize there's no service as soon as you depart the horse show for maybe 20 minutes, chase down the van with my car, super cool and safe. I think Holly Hill was driving for us at that time, and they're so wonderful that they pulled over and somehow navigated a path to get to that trunk for my keys. That was a terrible fail on my end, and hopefully didn't cause any sort of, muscle strain on them for too much time. But yeah, packing's a big one. I think all of us have gotten to horse shows without something, but another fail, Jamie again, she doesn't mind I'm calling her out. She has told me she left a horse at the horse show once.
I was going to bring that one up, and I think I called the driver for something.
That's worse than leaving someone at home.
Like, whatever its name's on the trailer, right? No. And you're like, no, because it came back from lease or whatever, and it was supposed to be your 9th horse, and he's like, no, I only have 8. I'm like, no, there's 9.
And you're insisting this because obviously that has to happen.
Exactly. And I'm like, there's 9. And I call Jamie and she's like, oh no, there's not 9. And so he has to turn around and go back and pick up the horse and then drive back from wherever he was driving.
How many times have shippers must wanted to kill all of us 100%. For things like that?
And thank goodness, it was realized within probably the first half an hour of him leaving, instead of being back in Vermont and unloading the
Please go get my horse.
Okay, where's my 9th horse?
Yeah.
No, there's no 9th horse.
Yeah, that's a tough one to leave, and at least you realized it.
Right.
Yeah, at all.
Between the two of us.
Somebody realized that poor horse wasn't there going, hello, somebody forgot me. Several off-course fails going off course. I can remember a lot of times. One time I tried to make it look like I wasn't going off course to the judge because I realized it after I picked up my canter to the first jump, and I just neatly went across the diagonal and did a little change and came back to it. That was noticed for sure. I did not get a ribbon in that class.
Nice try.
Nice try.
I had a really hard time when I went to college with the flat patterns. So my freshman year, they were
like dressage.
They're the simple dressage patterns, same format in that type of ring.
The flat class that you're.
It's not a flat class.
Tell you what to do.
It's not a format we're used to, and for whatever reason, my brain just had such a hard time. And I still remember the feeling as you're trotting around the corner, and the knowledge of what you're supposed to do next just drains out of your ears.
Yeah,
and you go blank. And you just get hot, and you're just
me and this horse, and I'm what's going on.
It's the dream where you're standing in the front of your class and in your underwear, and you're just I have no idea what's happening, where I am, or where I'm supposed to be going.
Right.
And this happened twice my freshman year. I finally got banned from doing the flat. I had
stopped asking you to participate. Because unlike a regular horse show, when you're there for yourself, essentially, right? You're representing your team.
It was me. I was disappointed.
Your whole school.
The entire University of South Carolina. And so I had to really practice being able to be given a test and only have so much time and be able to remember it for a good chunk of my freshman year before I could reliably not screw it up.
You're this isn't normal.
Have different
there's a pattern. Yeah. And I'm sure that first nationals, when they sent me in, there were a lot of cross fingers behind backs that I was just gonna lose it.
All right, everyone. Let's hope Kimmy can keep it together. Yeah. Well, and also in your defense, that is very different than what we normally do on the flat, which is,
I'm told what to do.
Yeah, you're told what to do. Exactly. You're told what to do. Watch others. I can do that. Okay. Exactly. But yeah, that feeling of being in the ring and having no idea what you're supposed to do next, jumping or not. Actually, it's a horrible feeling. So I have another fail from an old student who is actually, we're having repeats from some old guests here. Kate Chant, who is the lovely student that I used to teach on her junior jumper / lesson horse. She writes, when I was 15, I got halfway through a derby course on my children's hunter, then pulled up because I couldn't remember where I was going next. I can confirm time never passes slower, which is what you just said, Kimmy, right? Then when you are parked in the middle of a ring with an audience and 4 judges watching, trying to figure out out where you were going next, or you were trying to figure out where to go next. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably 2 minutes, still an eternity, people started shouting, "The brown oxer." I continued on my way and finished the course, and one set of judges gave me a score of 10, and the other gave me a score of 15, totaling 25 from 2 panels. Later, I was bathing my horse in the wash stalls, feeling humiliated, and a bunch of different professionals, this is lovely, came up to me and took turns telling me their own embarrassing stories of horse show fails. How appropriate. And that's true. We've all done that. I have had several students, and it's painful to watch them when you know that they're going off course. And in the jumpers, sometimes you try to save them and you're like, red vertical, right. And I had one student who was such a awesome student, a couple actually that have this pattern of learning. They were dyslexic. So I learned quickly that saying right didn't make a difference. Right. It didn't help one bit. If I said red or vertical or 6, whatever, that might have helped. But in the hunter ring, what do you do? Nona Garson one year told me about a Grand Prix she was jumping. Again, sorry, Nona, if you're listening to expose all this, but I think a lot of people know the story. She was in the Grand Prix of at the National Horse Show when it was at Madison Square Garden in New York. And she also had a high tendency to go off course all the time. I did not work for her this time, but she told me this story. And I remember her saying, I was in the jump off and I jumped the first 3 jumps and then had no idea where I was going, but I kept cantering and shouted to the crowd, "Where am I?" And the first answer I got, somebody in the crowd said, "New York." The most unhelpful answer, but hilarious ever. I'm sure that she just really struggled at the moment to think of, are you kidding me right now? But what are you going to do for things like that? Another fail story was also happening in the ring, but I was watching a student we were in Michigan and I was watching them do an equitation test. And it was one of those years where I put way too much importance on winning and ribbons and what we were doing, which I guess is probably my whole career, but at least I did then. And we were in Michigan. One of our grooms had brought a dog to the horse show, and this dog was a wonderful dog, but she was a bloodhound. And so if she got out, she was usually gone. And I'm waiting. The student, Emma, her name was, and the 3 other students are standing up in the medals test in the ring. And Emma herself is cantering around the course. And Ellie, the dog, I see from afar cantering down the hill towards the ring. And I'm like, she's going to stop. She's going to stop. She's going to stop. Nope. She canters right through the middle of the ring, cuts Emma off. Emma is oblivious to the dog. It just continues on, practically runs the dog over. And I'm torn between trying to get the dog out of the ring, but announcing that that's our dog.
All at the same time.
So I freeze for a moment and I'm trying to let Emma finish and trying to, figure out, okay, she's coming to this jump next. Is the dog going to be out before she gets to that jump? Finally, I just yell into the ring, "Ellie, come here." And
here's Kristy just trying to solve a 3-body problem at the engage.
It was horrible. And then, Emma's father's looking over at me while he's trying to video Emma on the course. Like, what the hell is going on? And luckily, the course, Emma was not disrupted. The horse was not disrupted. The entire ring looked at me and was like, great. There's that trainer. I was that person.
Right.
It was after my showing time, but I remember seeing the video of, was it Liza Towell, who got followed around by a dog for almost an entire course at Devon?
Yes. Yes, it was. Liza, if you're listening, and I think it is her, would love to know that story from your perspective. Although she must not have even noticed since it was behind her.
I would hope not.
Her father, I'm sure, noticed and was probably very frustrated at somebody else's dog. This is why there's a leash law at the horse show. That's really important. I mean, dogs, very funny now. Terrible then. One more student who writes about going off course. My first time showing in the Hunters in Wellington was on a sales horse, and I had never been in such a big ring without numbers on the jumps. And there were a lot of white oxers. First jump was a white oxer. Second jump was a white oxer. I jumped the wrong white oxer backwards and then continued jumping around until I noticed my trainer yelling at me to stop. I also didn't even comprehend that the announcer was asking me to stop. So another example of being sort of just blinded and deaf in the ring to your own faults when you realize off course is actually happening. That's tough. That's a tough feeling. Okay, last one. This has to go along with a picture that we will post on our Instagram and Facebook page. A mother of a student writes, Kristy, you would remember this. When Catherine graduated from braids, so when you're you, Kimmy, never had to wear braids, but kids these days wear braids when they're riding ponies. Although I don't even remember you showing a pony. Did you go right to horses? Okay.
I have a 17-head horse when I was 11.
Okay, that might have been my own fail, but you lived. In fact, I think that was Sprout.
Sprout.
She was my own personal horse, who was very tough and very big. You're right, and I thought also it was a good idea as your trainer. And you were a little kid too.
Tiny child.
I mean, you're a normal sized person in general, but you were a very, very small child at the time. Yeah. And I remember that being, I thought it was a great idea.
Went reasonably well, but no, that's a long answer. No, I never.
So no, you never did ponies. Okay. So you were never in braids. So, so this student of mine was my first student who wore braids, and I grew up in the strict era of always wear your hair up in a hairnet and always be very neat and pretty, and then braids became a thing and those bows became a thing, and I'm sure there's several bow fails amongst other pony barns, but I was really trying to get this student to graduate to putting her hair up, and finally my rule to her was, when you were off a pony and on a horse, you've got to get a hairnet and put it up. And she had really long hair. So we struggled with how the hair was fitting in her new helmet that had to be larger to accommodate all this hair. And her mother writes, when Catherine graduated from braids and was learning how to put her hair up under her helmet, it caused so much stress for everybody. She's right. We finally thought she had it just right until she started cantering around the course and her helmet slipped back, exposing her hairnet and the knot, that dreaded knot that we all know goes right on your forehead, with the chin strap now covering her mouth. She she kept going while we stared and laughed throughout the course. So actually, this fail is not just hairnet, but trainer laughing at your student, which is really frowned upon, but it was impossible not to laugh. And luckily I was standing with her mom, who writes this, who was cracking up as well. So you see poor Catherine here, and nobody can see this right now, but you'll hopefully get to reference it. I mean, this poor kid, I mean, we made fun of her for weeks about that. But I did try mostly to be supportive of my students. But come on, if something that funny happens,
and they probably think it's funny eventually.
Yes.
Point,
the only reaction is to laugh.
Exactly. Well, and I think that goes along with, if fails happen in life or riding, you have to laugh.
Yeah. Have a good attitude about it.
Exactly. Attitude is everything, isn't it? Just hard to remember at the time. Well, this has been a fun one. Thanks, you two, for catching up with me and going over some of our worst moments at the horse show. For everybody listening, if you have any of your own fails, I would love to hear them. We could do a second reading of those. I can keep it anonymous, don't worry. But commiserating on some of the stuff that goes wrong at the horse show is really the only way to survive those tough moments. So anyways, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time.